favorite dream?
What's your favorite dream?
Hi guys, welcome back to the Lorri Love Show. We're on the second episode. I have Cito Blanko in the building.
Yo, what's up? What's poppin'? It's your boy Cito Blanko. Don't never miss a free throw. We out in Jersey at the Lorri Love Show. You already know what's up, man. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
You heard?
Yeah, big years, yo. Big years. I ain't gonna lie, like for the first time in my life, I'm gonna say shout out to the Jersey Turnpike for not having too much traffic, you feel me? And I felt like I got a discount on Easy Pass even if I didn't though, so shout out to y'all.
I feel like I go to New York so much. Like it feels good to have people from New York coming to Jersey for me. Like thank you, appreciate it.
Nah, it's love. You know what I'm saying? Like yo, I feel like if anybody gotta get love, you gotta give love to Lorri Love. So I just feel like that's how it gotta be.
So I'm like super hyped to have Cito on here because you guys always see me posting his work on my page. Like I have to mention that the first time I ever went on a stage and performed, Cito was there. And I think it was his first time going on the stage to
Big
perform
facts.
too.
Yeah. So we kind of got that experience. I feel like we went to the first, we had the same experience of the first day of school type shit.
And Cito just has so much energy on stage. I was like, I had never seen somebody screaming like that. I was like, what is he talking about? And then I was listening and I was like, wow, this guy like really is deep, but got mad swag too. So I was just like, okay, I'm fucking with the vibes.
Heard. Appreciate that. Heard. It's funny because I look back at that day and I'll be like, yo, what the hell was I wearing? Like, it's like you look back years later, like, yo, damn, like I like a pool putt, but you know, the irony of the times, you feel me?
So
That's
it's
how
been
I be.
like 3 years later now and Cito hasn't stopped.
It's been 3 years, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Cito hasn't stopped. Cito's been performing. I think you perform like 3-4 times a week.
Just about. At one point, I could say there was like a good 9-month period where it was like 3-4 times a week. Sometimes I was hitting 5 or 6.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like
it was
every
just-
day.
Yeah, it was just like I just feel like the hard work pays. But sometimes you got to take a step back and also like deal with mental health and all the other stuff. But
And you do so many different poems that I'd be like, how do you even memorize all that?
yo, to be honest, I be sitting in my house just remembering poems at times. But now it's like anytime like I have like dead time, like I'll be at work or on the train or just walking home. Like sometimes I'll be drunk in the club and I'm like, yo, say a poem right now in your head. Like
You test your abilities
yeah,
to like multitask.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like a militant kind of feel. Like I guess like playing sports and football and stuff like that. It was kind of like, yo, if you always ready, you don't got to get ready. So it's
Right.
kind of like I try to put myself in positions that are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just so I'm ready. So anytime I get on stage and somebody says my name, it's like, yeah, it's my time. But if I'm like legit somewhere else and I just wake up in the morning and just say a poem, then it's kind of like you always ready. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What made you get into poetry and spoken word and stuff?
To be honest, like I feel like it more found me than anything. Like the irony of it, like my first poem was at my friend's funeral. Anybody that knows my story, like yeah. And it's like after a while, it just became a resource to express my pain. And then after a while, it's like that's why I be saying like the irony of it is like I just be like I'm not a poet. I just talk my shit because it's kind of like I never really viewed myself as a poet. Like I never like read Shakespeare. I never was in no high school class like bumping poetry or
Same.
writing haikus and shit. Like legit, I was listening to many men. You feel me? Like so.
Right.
One day it just kind of happened and people started calling me a poet. I'm like, yeah, I want to say I'm a poet, but I want to say I'm a rapper. I just feel like I'm just me and like I just do me. And,
Right.
and that's just kind of how that should be happening.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I feel like poetry and writing and expression has helped me deal with like tough times. Like I think that, and I think it helps a lot of us, and it helps us like when you get out there and you actually involve yourself in the community of poets, you realize that like we all go through shit and we all here striving. And I think that we live in a time where it's like we're made to feel like nobody is struggling. Like everybody broadcasts their highlights and the good things. And so we start feeling like when we go through something, we start feeling like we're alone in our struggle because we're like, everybody else is living their best life. And here I am going through this challenge. And there's not enough like talks about like the challenges and overcoming them and stuff like that. And I think that with poetry, it's like it gets really real, you know?
No, it's a fact. I think the process of it is just amazing because it's like everything I feel like people feel like they're missing in music or they lacking music right now, I feel like happens in poetry. The only thing I feel like is like, to a certain extent, I feel like the poetry world is almost like it's like a club at high school or college where it's like, if you're not a part of it or understand it, you don't understand, I guess, the greatness of it or the importance.
Yeah.
And I kind of say like I purposefully like have a mission to kind of change that.
Yes.
I feel like poetry needs to be something that's on a wider scale in the sense of starting that conversation.
Yeah.
One thing that when I do my research and I look at like directors or I look at like people that have changed this world, 9 times out of 10, like on the long list of things that they do, being a poet is one of them. And I think that's something that's important. I think that poetry is a very important space of like just a revolution in a lot of things. So I think it matters.
Yeah, and then when you share, like, when I remember I started asking like my coworkers to come to my poetry events a few years ago when I first started, and they were like, I'm not into poetry, like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, just come and experience it. And I remember them afterwards telling me like, that was so dope, like I never experienced something like that, and it just made me look at life so much more different. And and I remember them like genuinely thanking me. And I think it's something that the more we try different things, the more we realize what's out there for us too. Like sometimes you're afraid to go to a different scene or a different vibe just because it's not what you're familiar with. And then when you get out there, you're like, wow, this is like actually dope. I should do this more often.
No, that's facts. I think it's 100% facts. The irony of it is like, I think if somebody, even in this space when I started writing, said we out to a poetry show, I'd have been like, fuck out of here, I'm good. Like, I ain't trying to be out here snapping, you know what I'm saying? Kind of,
yeah.
but. And
or hearing that emotional, like, sob story, blah, blah, blah. But, like, there's a lot of poets that I've come across, like yourself, that it's like you display the strength, too, which is the most important thing, is, like, don't just bleed out into the world and then not tell people how you picked yourself back up.
You know what's so crazy about that? I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough in life or even in poetry. Like, I feel like social media or rap or, like, sometimes, like, the vanity shows all the good. And I feel like sometimes poets only show all the bad. I feel like I'm here to show the process.
Yeah.
I want, like, it's kind of like, yo, it's bad, but then it gets to good. Then, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a whole cycle. And I feel like, yeah, like, I don't want to, it's the irony is, like, sometimes I feel like even as us as poets, we feed off of people's pain. Yeah. Like, it's kind of like, I feel like we open up our own wounds and open up other people's wounds. Yeah. And then leave it bleeding without giving like a plan or a Band-Aid. And I feel like that's almost wrong to ourselves and to our listeners. Like, there's nothing wrong about talking about that pain because pain's a part of life. But the fact that we just dwell in that and stay in that, like, they may leave that show and give you a 10 or clap, but they got to go home and deal with that. You got to go home and deal with that. Let's talk about some of the ways to get out of that funk too. You feel me? I think that's important. That's
why I relate to your poetry so much, and I love it so much, because you'll make somebody feel something, and then you'll be like I'll feel something when I hear your poetry, and I'll be like, oh, but I healed too after that. And I'm all about that. Like, whenever I do poems too and I share them, I always try to share the whole journey, like the strength, the pain, and how it helped me, and like the bright side of it. And I was watching your YouTube, and you were talking about perspective and the silver lining, and always looking for the silver lining, and that's a good place to be and to stay at, is like always looking for the silver lining through no matter what experience. Like, I know you went to like customize some sneakers. You went to do a poetry show out in Florida, I think.
Yeah, that's that was the vlog. Yeah, that was like just trying to, just showing the process of like certain things of how it is. I feel like that's important and to let people know. I feel like a lot of times, like, and I've done this, like, I'll look at somebody's page and then see them doing something, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait till I get to a space to do that. And then once you realize how it happened, you're like, wow, like, I'm in that space right now. And I feel people need to see the process. I think people need to understand that the life that you're kind of thinking so far away might be actually a step away or right there. Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And I want people to understand that. Like, it's funny because, like, me and my friend Chuck had a conversation the other day, and people was like, yo, they walk up to me like, I want to be just like you. And that's just, it's scary to me, because it's kind of like, you should want to be just like yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But understand the principles and the values that which I adopt and live by, and hopefully you live by them too. So now you could be you, I could be me, and the world becomes a better place. Because if we have a bunch of sweet Citos out there, then I feel like that's unfair to God, that's unfair to the world. I feel like we should have a bunch of people that love to be themselves. Yeah. And that's the beauty of it all. And I think hopefully, like, my work could get people there one day.
You said something in your vlog or vlog. You said that like as a kid you used to like buying sneakers a lot. You always wanted the Jordans, and that your brother was like, you know, you're gonna always want the next Jordan, and you're still not gonna be happy because there's always gonna be another Jordan and things like that. And then you related it to, you know, like I'm from Patterson, you're from the Bronx, so we both come from hard places. And there's also we see everything. We see the full spectrum. We see people who live in poverty and people who are wealthy. We see it all because of where we are. We're in the big cities. So you said something that really struck a chord with me, and it was that sometimes we buy things or we do certain things just to feel recognition from others or to get love from others, when really what we really want is like to have a good connection and bond with others so that we can feel good within ourselves. And something I want to talk about on the show is just like how important it is to actually have good bonds and connections with others, because sometimes we do a lot of things or we feel a lot of pain because our connections aren't right with others. So we do things to get attention when really we should just be ourselves, and the right people will come to us.
Nah, that's big facts. I think a lot of that goes into self-love. I feel like a lot of that goes into necessarily like your value system growing up. I think Nav had a song with Meek Mill called Tap, I believe. And he's just kind of like, he's like, yo, how are we supposed to save if we ain't have nothing?
Right.
Like sometimes it's like as I got older, I realized that just because I have the money to do something doesn't mean morally or budget wise I should do it.
Right.
Like majority of my life, it was kind of like I can't eat lobster because I can't afford lobster. Then once I got money, it's like not eat lobster every day, but it's also like, but you're not supposed to. Like, you know what I'm saying? Once I realized that, I'm like, you're not supposed to spend 45% of your money on any type of clothes or tangible thing that's a liability, you know?
Yeah,
like those are
and we grow up feeling good off of those things because we have nothing. So when we can get it, we're like,
yeah, and it makes us feel special, but it's also the love that we get.
Right.
Because it's like, there's times I've bought new sneakers and went to school and got no love, and it's kind of like I want to return the sneakers now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you start to look at it, it's like, yo, like, in all reality, I was just getting the love. Like sometimes, like, when that girl that liked you look at you a certain way, like, that's what that money was buying. When your bros is like, man, you that nigga, bro. Like, yo, when I grow up, can I be like you? Like, a lot of stuff was created for that. And it's ironic that it's like, when you get older, you don't need that. When you get older, you realize, like, that doesn't matter. Then you start to wonder, like, yo, like, my money and what I invest my money in also is what I invest my time and my morality and, like, my lifestyle in. So if I invest in a company or I put my money towards something that doesn't represent me as a person or my flesh, then that says more than the social currency of people loving me or just a girl, like, getting a couple more likes or a couple more heart eyes in my DMs. Like, is it really worth it?
Yeah, and it just defeats the purpose of your work too. Like,
seriously.
when you do things for the approval of others, because you don't recognize that what you really want is just love from others, you kind of lose sight that, like, by loving yourself and just being yourself, like, you're gonna get that back, you know? So you do all this work and it's like you're not giving it to you, you're giving it to an appearance or to an idea of what's gonna bring you more happiness, when really that happiness is just a perception that resides, like, within you.
Which is 100% of a fact. I feel like no matter how you want to look at it, I think it's an African proverb. It's like no enemy could exist without no enemy within. And I think, like, no love can exist without you. There's no love within. So I feel like 9 times out of 10, we were looking for people to validate the love that we have for ourselves. We look for everything else. And sometimes you gotta look yourself in the mirror and just be like, you're enough. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, I appreciate the fact that I got friends that, like, legit be like, yo, bro, like, yo, you enough. Even if you don't feel like it, you're enough. Like, even if you never wrote another word ever again, like, if nobody ever cared about who you are as a person, like, or your brand as Cito Blanko, like, you're enough as the person you are.
Yeah.
And I think that matters. I feel like we get caught up in so much stuff, but just like vanity. And it sucks because I was talking to my brother literally 2 days ago. He's a firefighter. He's like, the amount of suicides he sees and the amount of people that hurt themselves. And it's like you're so surprised because you would never assume people like that would do that. But it's just a lack of empathy, a lack of, like, actual love.
A lack of support and love, and they feel alone. Like, they feel like there's no one they can talk to about what their problems are, you know? And I think that's, like, poetry has helped me a lot. Like, I've been there. I've gone through things with family and felt really betrayed and alone, or in relationships. And I felt like, you know, anybody who is going through a rough time or just wants to be better where they're at, I feel like getting out there and going to, like, a poetry event, I feel like that helps. Like, every time I leave a poetry event, I always feel so much more inspired, and I always feel so much less alone, because I'm like, we're so human. Like, we go through so many things that we don't talk about because we want to seem cool to our friends, or we want to keep up with this identity, and we don't want to bring others down. But it's like, when you go somewhere where it's all about expressing what you've actually been through and seeing people live to talk about it, like, that keeps me going. Like,
No, as it should. I feel like that's important. I feel like if you can't afford therapy, I feel like most definitely go to a poetry slam. Like, if you if you have a problem unpacking certain things, or like I feel like, to me, like, poetry should be a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it shouldn't be like, to me, like, poetry should never be the end of a sentence.
Right.
It should never be a period. I feel like it should at least be the introduction or a thesis into, like, growth.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like, and I feel like my work does that. Like,
Absolutely.
I feel like there's certain people, when I write certain things, I'm like, not everybody in this event is gonna like me.
Right.
Not everybody in this event is gonna appreciate what just took place. But I'm gonna ruffle some feathers. But trust me, like, those feathers getting ruffled is gonna help you fly one day. And I think that's the important thing, because people ruffling my feathers to a certain extent help me fly one day. And I think that's what matters.
Yeah. Sometimes I share things and I'm like, this is kind of deep. This is kind of like extreme. But I'm like, even if it touches one or two people in a room of 50 or 100 people, at least I did what I felt was necessary, which was expressing what I went through, how I got over it, and how, like, suicide is not the answer, how, like, giving up is not the answer. And, like, every time that things get really, really hard, when you come out of that, you feel so good. Like, I remember I was depressed for like a year because I got home one day and everything in my apartment was gone. And I remember I told you about it.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was like, this is nuts. Like, it was done by a family member. And I was just like, I can't believe that this is what I worked so hard to build up my own stuff. And then now it's all gone and I got to start over. And it was just so shocking to me that I was in a really dark place for a while. And, looking back to how down I felt, and like the people who helped me throughout that journey, from me not being afraid to express what I was going through, from me not closing off and just disappearing from the world and being like, I can't talk to anyone, this is too much, from me actually being like, yo, I'm going through this, I can't show up to that event, I can't extend myself because I'm overwhelmed right now. Like, you sent me this jacket, and I was like, and that touched my heart. Like, you know, little things like that. And that wasn't a little thing. Like, it took time. Like, you know, let me take the jacket off. But,
you know what's so wild? Like, it was...
this jacket, you wrote one of my poems inside, first of all, you know.
Yeah, I wrote a poem inside.
You put scriptures all throughout my jacket. And you put something like, you're never in this alone, from Cito. Like, this touched my heart. Like, this gave me strength. Like, something that somebody, you know, the average person wouldn't think of doing something like this. And then the back, it says, it's not broken, it just needs duct tape. And then it says life all over. And Cito customizes stuff, so holla at him for that. I don't know if you have the time, but you should definitely holla at him if you need a customized jacket.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on it. But no, I'm like, you know what it is? Like,
But I'm like, he's right. It's not broken. It does need something like duct tape. Like, I can put it back together.
It can always come back together. Like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, if you ever been in the house and, like, you see what duct tape could do, like, duct tape would change your whole life. You feel me? Like, you be walking around like, man, just put some duct tape on that shit. We be all right. But nah, I think it's like having a kindred spirit. Like, when you see people going through stuff, and it's like, sometimes the world sucks because you like, yo, like, I don't feel like that person deserves to go through that.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like sometimes, like, you don't know what impact it has. And I was in the process, like, legit in my house just making stuff. And it's funny because people come to me a lot of times for jackets and stuff. And it's like, it's weird because, like, I could give my words to the world. But sometimes when it comes to certain things, it's like, I want to give that to people I know would appreciate it, that matters. And in that moment, I was just like, I just felt like that's something I had to do.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like that's something I needed to do. And it was weird because I was just like, damn, if I ask for her address, like, I hope she don't be like, why this nigga want my address? Like, you feel me? Like, you know what I'm saying?
And it's crazy because I never expected that. I never expected that you were going to send me a jacket. And, like, I was in a time where I was doing so much for others and not getting anything from anyone, you know? And it was like, even the people that I had around me at the time, there was no one who could, like, say anything to make me feel better. And just from sharing something real with you that the next person will probably be embarrassed to talk about, you helped me in a big way. you know. And then I had a college classmate also who gave me like some stones and stuff like that. And going through that experience was what made me realize how important it is to be honest and to be vulnerable and to be raw about what you're going through, because you can't fix things that you're afraid to confront, and you can't heal from things that you're afraid to talk about. And a lot of us carry pain for years because we're afraid to talk about it.
No, that's facts. I think I was watching a Jay-Z interview. He said that, said what we reveal, we heal.
Yeah.
And it made me hit home. Like, it's because I was actually, like, the irony is, like, I was actually working this collab with my son Mal Metro. Shout out to Mal Metro. Like, check some of his stuff. He's a beast poet. And it was like a part of the conversation was just like with Jay-Z. I forgot who he was speaking to, but he said, like, I see you. Like, so many times and so many fights happened in the hood or growing up because people like, yo, what you looking at? And he's like, oh, you think I see you. You think I see your pain. You think I see your vulnerability. You think I see your weakness. So because you're trying to prove to me that you're so man enough and you're not weak, that you're willing to almost kill me or fight me just because I see you, because I'm looking at you. And it's almost like people don't want to be looked at because people are hurting so bad and they're going through so much that it's like they do everything for you to only, like, almost to a certain space. I feel like people will spend $5,000 on an off-white fit if you look at their clothes, you don't look at their soul. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, do you look at your soul? You know what I'm saying? And it's just finding that balance. Ain't nothing wrong with off-white. Ain't nothing wrong with ain't nothing wrong with clothes or tats or whatever the case might be. Like,
but just make sure you're good within.
Yeah.
And because it's gonna keep coming back to you, and you have to heal, and you can only heal what you reveal. No, that's 100.
That's a fact.
And that's why your poem, My Pain, My Gain, is like one of my favorite poems ever. There's so much in there. There's so many gems in there.
Yeah, that one's the funny thing is, like, I kept losing at the Nuyorican Poetry Café. I kept losing, like, slams at the Nuyorican Poetry Cafe.
Oh, that's crazy to me.
Because sometimes, like, slams have a certain format, how they go about things. Not knocking it, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Job Poetic, shout out to CJ, shout out to V Hill. But I feel like I had to go home and check myself, like pause, like, am I going deep enough, you know?
Right.
Like, am I really, like, am I just talking about, even, like, am I talking about just surface level stuff of pain? Mm-hmm. Or am I really, like, unpacking something? And that poem, I had to unpack stuff, and it's like, I had to talk about, like, my tough times with drugs at one point.
Love it. I love it.
Had to talk about, like, just, like, missing my grandmother. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get into it. You want to get into it? Put him on blast.
I laugh at the days that I was scared to be me, acting like the people that I seen on TV. The days that I spent not being true to my soul is the days that I felt so cold and low and lost in this place that I thought was my home. Every day that I spent not being true to my and low and lost in my soul. Every day I spent not being true to my soul is the days that I felt so cold and low. Hold on, I'm bugging right now. I'm bugging.
It's because I put you on blast.
It's not because you put me on blast.
And it was right in the middle.
It's like, I ain't gonna lie, like, the last couple of days it's just been kind of like unpacking stuff. So sometimes you kind of go back into it. I'm thinking about those moments of being low.
Let's talk about that beginning part of your poem, though.
What? I laugh at the days I was scared to be me. Like I remember walking around like, if I looked like Chris Brown, then she would like me. If I had this tattoo like my man's, then this would happen. If I wore those Jordans, then this would happen. Like now I look back at those days and I laugh. Like, wow, like, you try to be everybody except for yourself. Yeah. And now I laugh at it like, yo, bro, what was wrong with you? Like, why did you walk around trying to be it? Like, so, like, I laugh at the days I was trying to be me, like, act like the people that I seen on TV. Like, those days that I spent not being true to my soul was the days that I felt so low and cold and lost in this place that I thought was my home. Every door that I opened, I felt more alone, looking in the mirror, wondering if I was the clone, because this can't be me. This can't be you. Whatever happened to the passion that we had on the first day of school? Y'all remember when cool used to rule? Now we do is get drinks and eat food. Like, who the fuck are you? Yo, sometimes I think about who I used to be, and the memories are scary. Calling women hoes, making fun of people's clothes, stashing O's from my bros. Trust me, there's so much more the Lord knows. I'm crying because my soul is exposed. I hate tears because they never tell the same story. Like, I cry because of fear. I cry because I wish my grandmother was here. I cry because there's days like I feel like I shouldn't be here. But I'm a ghost. I'm only focused on my goals. But having so much power could be such a lonely road, especially when friends say that they're here. Just because you're present doesn't mean you gifted me your kid. How did my story of pain turn out a girl from your job with the same color hair? How Tommy from Power was at your job buying beers, but I listened to your point of story of your day because I care. I guess they wasn't lying. Life really isn't fair. I guess I'm not strong enough to tell you how weak I am. Like, I don't have suicidal thoughts. I just wonder what certain people say at my grave. Yo, one of my deepest secrets is that sometimes I feel like a lame when I'm screaming Jesus' name, but I'm a sinner and that's old news. Try walking in my old shoes. Them shits don't fit. and these new kicks hurt a little bit. And I hate the fact that I need people to feel love because I really miss the drugs. Like, nah, dead ass though. Like, I really miss the drugs. Like, when I was high, even fake love felt like a hug. Because it's a hard word to deal with when you sober. But playtime is over. I decided to live in my reality because that's my destiny. I don't run from my pain no more. Tried to smoke, but the high ain't the same no more. I don't run from my pain no more. I tried to smoke, but the high ain't the same no more. I don't run from my pain no more. I tried to smoke, but the high. That's one of my favorite lines ever. I'm not even gonna lie.
Me too.
Like,
seriously.
That's one of my favorite lines of all time because it's just like.
It gets to that point, man.
Yo, I legit remember like having a hard day. Like I just need to dope. I just need to smoke. Like, yo, bro, let me get that. Yo, you got papers? Yo, you got this? You got grabber? You got like just put up on the block.
And
I gotta
it's like
smoke.
the process from where you are to where you want to be while you're figuring out like this isn't working for me anymore, and you're still not sure how to get out of what's not working for you.
Facts.
So like you're like, you know, the shoes, they don't fit no more. The new ones hurt.
Yeah, because it's tough.
Sorry. The shoes.
Nah,
too much tapping on the table. I'm getting like excited.
It's all good.
But like the shoe, like, so it's like when you're going through that transition of who you are not serving you and wanting to change and still trying to figure it out, it's like that growth is painful. And that's why they say like a lot of the times when you're feeling pain, you're actually growing. And
that's the thing. I feel like we don't talk about it or discuss it enough. People like when people think life's supposed to be marvelous, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you look at it like it's supposed to be this way. That's why Instagram could be a lie, social media could be a lie, because you feel like in all reality, no matter how you want to look at it, like one post, even you went live for an hour, there's still 23 hours in a day. Like, you know what I'm saying? How you went about that, and then what resulted to that. I feel like that matters more than anything. And the whole like that line too, like, yo, the amount of times I try to go back to the old stuff, I try to go back to old girls, try to go back to old lifestyles, old drugs, a lot of things, and it's kind of like they don't fit no more.
Yeah,
like,
and doesn't it like hurt more when you go back and you're like, damn, I outgrew this, I went back.
Yeah.
Now it's like it hurts a little because you're like, I'm taking away from my growth, going back to that same thing, thinking it's gonna be different.
It hurts a lot, because once you go through it and you're like, man, you knew this wasn't the answer, but it's almost like, why do you have to keep taking 10 steps back to come back to where you was at in the first place? Like, just grow.
Exactly.
Just grow. Like, sometimes you got to break new shoes in. Like, people always love new stuff, but sometimes you buy that like those new jeans don't feel the same way like the jeans that you wear all the time because they broken in,
right?
Or the shoes that you want to run in because they're comfortable. Like, sometimes you got to understand that, like, when you get new stuff, it takes time to break in. Like, you kind of got to reintroduce yourself to yourself in a lot of spaces.
And to the people who know you too.
Yeah.
Like when you change and you're like, I don't want to be in that toxic relationship anymore. I don't want to just chill and smoke weed all day anymore.
No, it's facts. It's big facts.
I can't chill with you all day long anymore, you know? And it's hard having those conversations with people because they still see you for that person that you've been while you were confused about what your purpose was. And then once you figure out what your purpose is and what you want to do with your life, it's like you have to reintroduce yourself to people who've known you for so long. And it's like, they're like, I don't even know you anymore. You're like, I don't even know me anymore. I'm still figuring it out.
No, that's big facts. I think it's just tough in general with life with friends. I've always lived in this Bronx, and I've always lived in the same like crib most of my life. But it's also like I've traveled a lot, and like I've been in situations at young ages where it's kind of like I understand things were temporary. So it's like even with people in my life, it's like let's appreciate the time that we have and right now, because it's not always going to be the same. I'm not sure I'm going to be the same. I'm not sure you're going to be the same.
Yeah.
But there's people that I've had in my life that like for like a 2-3 year period, I might have seen like 80% of the days, and it's like now it's just kind of like you don't even almost exist.
Yeah.
It's like you're like not irrelevant to my process, but it's more like you're just not in this process for me.
Right.
And a lot of times decisions in life, and sometimes it's trauma, sometimes stuff that they do. And that's the other thing I have to learn. Like a great book is The Four Agreements. Like don't take nothing personal. Sometimes the stuff that people do to you is their trauma, is their viewpoint, and it sucks because R.I.P. Nipsey Hussle. But it's like I feel like when you're doing positivity in this world, or you're standing for something strong, people want to break you down because you cracked their matrix. They don't want to see that. It's like if you have a good heart and you're doing the right thing, then it's a bad reflection on them.
Yes.
Like you can't exist because if you exist, then that nullifies or it hurts their belief. You know what I'm saying? It's like the whole process that girls walk around like keep saying like niggas ain't shit. I hate that line because it's like as long as we live in that world, then it's easier for men to not be shit or women to be in spaces to look at men a certain way, when it's kind of like, nah, like that's far from the case. Like we all need to be accountable for our actions and understand where we stand and what's going on in this world.
Or like when you have that mentality, like women ain't shit, or men ain't shit. You minimize yourself as a man or woman, and the type of person you are, because now you're not treating people how you normally would treat them because you feel like they ain't shit. So you're not being yourself. You're being a reflection of something that you saw from one bad person or a few bad people, or maybe it's you. Maybe you're putting too much of yourself out there and you're not giving yourself value. So now you think that because people didn't stick around or they didn't do what you wanted them to do for you, that they aren't shit. When really, like, everybody's on their own journey. So you need to respect that, and you need to give yourself space and time before you let somebody into your world and your comfort zone, because then you're hurt. Now you're hurt that it didn't work out with so-and-so, when really you didn't even give it time to grow or see if you were both on a common ground where you could grow together.
No, that's a fact. That's 100% a fact.
And it's true, that whole women ain't shit, niggas ain't shit. You know, a lot of people like to drink and smoke that pain away from that too. And it's like, I've been there. I'm saying I've been there, and it didn't work. It didn't work anymore. I had to change. I had to stop looking for a man to validate me or to make me feel like, you know, if I'm not in a relationship, then I'm not a good woman enough. Like, that's not true. And like, it gets to the point where you start smoking and drinking to distract yourself from the animosity that you have with other people. And it's like, that doesn't work. At one point or another, you need to fix yourself. Which
is the fact. You got to unpack it. Like, it almost becomes like self-hate in that space. You put yourself in that position, and it's like, it's wild, because it's like, I have to learn this, like, we're experiences, and life should just be an experience. And you should find somebody you should want to share your experience with. A lot of times I feel like we used to look to people to fill voids for love. I used to look the same way. Like, I have friends that are males that it's like, if their girlfriend doesn't have sex with them, their self-esteem isn't the same.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like they need that to know that they're...
like it has to be like, it's like, yo, bro, like, I ain't getting no pussy, so I don't feel the same. My money not right, so I don't feel the same. I'm not killing this, I don't feel the same. And after a while, you got to ask yourself, it's like, why all these tangible things have to increase your self-esteem to make you who you are? Like, you should be you, and these things should be experiences, and you're an experience, and you should take them and live your life with them, not have them live your life for you. Yeah. And that's one thing that I had to learn from it and understand. Like, and it's tough because it's like being in situations of being around girls at times that you necessarily don't even like. Like, like, there's mad girls I've probably chilled with I didn't like. It's just that it just seemed like the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Or
let's get into that a little bit.
It was cool to just...
I feel like sometimes guys try to talk to me, and I know they don't like me, and I'd be like, this guy just wants attention, because I'll see that he's trying to get attention from a bunch of girls. Or guys will tell me, like, that they don't trust girls because the girls that they try to talk to too many guys, and this and that. So it's like, I think that people who need attention from everybody is just that they're not giving themselves enough attention to feel whole. Like,
that's a fact. I think that's a fact. I also feel like,
or it does something like a dopamine effect. Like, the more attention you get from girls or guys or whatever you like, the better you feel about yourself, and it becomes addictive. I think it becomes addictive. Like, I think guys or girls who get into that, it's like, oh, how many girls can I get? Like, and I still want to check if I'm that dude. Like, to be honest, just bag her just to bag her.
At one point, like, that was the validation of, like, manhood for a long time. I'll never deny that. Like, for a long time, it was kind of like, yo, like, I have this conversation a lot. Like, I remember one time I was in a relationship, like, all my friends was on their gala shit, you know what I'm saying? They were just wild and doing their things with different girls. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm about to go see my girl. When, like, another one came up, like, they did this with this girl, did that with that girl. And it's more like, word, bro, yo, where you was at? And, like, the stories and that feeling, after a while, I felt like I didn't get respected by my friends because I was in a relationship. And it was kind of like, oh, you doing with the same girl, so it don't matter. And after a while, it kind of made me feel away, to be honest. And I was younger, and I was like, wow, like, I look back at that, and I was like, it shouldn't be that way. Right. And I feel like it's social currency. Like, after a while, we feel like if everybody wants us, then we're valuable. But in all reality, it's kind of like, nah, like, and that's what anything in life is like, yo, like, it only takes one person, and you should look for that one person to necessarily validate that. Or if you're a couple, you know, polygamy, whatever your case may be. But you should love you, and then you should share that experience with others. And if that one person you want to share that experience with, then cool. I just think that we're right now in a love revolution, a mental revolution, and a technology revolution at the same time, because I can honestly say that love has been a standpoint, especially for minorities, or like in general, for a standpoint of survival. My parents got married for survival. no matter how we want to look at it.
Yeah.
My grandparents got married for survival.
Yeah.
I felt like my sister generation, like the generation probably before me, in a sense of 5-10 years earlier, is the first time we really was just on something like, hold on, like, what do you like? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you really like? Not what can I be compatible with or just deal with. What do you like?
Yeah.
What is your life about? Like, what do you stand for? What's here? And I think we're just starting to realize that. So a lot of people aren't having kids or getting married because, for one, we grew up in a social media era where it's kind of like you get caught up in like the vanity of a lot of things, and like some people don't know who they are and you don't know what you like. Like, you don't understand yourself.
Yeah.
And it becomes tough. You get dating apps, you get social media, you get pulled up at the cribs, you get this, and it's like, it's wild because after a while you kind of like, I don't want like empty sex. You know what I'm saying? I don't want empty feelings. I want real conversations. I don't want,
and
you know,
it's like,
stuff like that.
I think from youth we become, it depends like how we grow up too. Like if you're busy with like hobbies and sports and you're busy like doing things that keep you busy as a kid, then you don't really have time for that. But like, I think like from youth, just from like middle school and high school, if you're one of those people who had like more time and you're dating and let's say you were in a puppy love relationship and you were with that person for a few years, then when you get out of it, you feel weird single. You feel like you're used to being in a relationship. So you start meeting people that you want to see them as potential because you want that relationship. Because we're told, like women and men, we're told early on, like traditionally, that we're meant to meet one person, marry them, start a family, and have kids. So we have this timeline in our minds like, yo, I need to find that one. So
no, that's a fact.
And then some of us are either too picky, or some of us are like, I just want to love this person that life threw my way. So I'm not going to really dig deep and figure out if we really are compatible. I'm going to love them how they are. And because I need that person to be in a relationship with. And then as you experience a life together, you're like, wait, this person and me, we don't deal with the hard times the same. Like, we're bringing each other down. This is toxic. This isn't good for me. But it's because we're in that mode where like we want love, and we know that we're capable of giving it. So we're like, let me give it to this person, even if they're not the most deserving, or even if they haven't done the most to earn it. I want to show how genuine my love is, that I can just give it to you, you know. But then you realize like how dangerous. It's just a hard time because like you said, like our family, they used to just stay together because it was easier to survive, to split the bills. One person would take care of the kids, the other person would work, and it was a team effort. And now it's like we feel like we have so many options. So we're like, why would I stay here when I can go over there?
There's power in options, 100%. But the irony of it is, I feel like to a certain extent, like we're still trying to prove that we can love.
Yeah.
And we could love somebody else.
Yeah,
So that's why I think that's why
that.
we kind of be like, well, if this person doesn't do it for me, I can prove it. I'm still trying to prove that. And I feel like when you prove you can love yourself and have the love for the world, I think that shows that. But it's also like, it's just, I just feel like there's a lot of toxic behaviors and foundation that we have.
Yeah.
And no matter how you want to look at it, it's hard to just kind of deal with it and grow in that space. Like,
yeah, love is a hard topic to figure out.
It really
There's never
is.
going to be a right or wrong approach to it. Yeah,
it's tough. And who you're compatible with. Because like, I know it's gonna come off wrong, but sometimes I feel like the most important like element to having a successful relationship or building a family may not even be love. Like,
right.
I think that, and I think that's the thing that's tough. Like even Tina Turner, what's love got to do with it? Like the irony of that song in the space of like, yeah, love is an element, love is a factor that should be there no matter what. But it's like, I know a lot of people that are in love, like, and it's just like everything else just doesn't work.
Right.
Like I've been in a situation where it's like, yo, connecting wise, like body wise, soul wise, me and this person, like, I mean, like me and her click like a motherfucker.
But then the real life things, it's like you're bickering and
it just doesn't add up, and you start to wonder like what that is, and it's just like I don't know if we ever had a successful like blueprint of relationships,
right?
In the space where men and women were equal, and we lived in an economy or a world that gave the opportunities that we have right now. Like, I don't think men and women have ever been on the same page.
Yeah.
Like, when you really think about it, it's just like in the revolution right now of the women and understanding like the equalities of what's going on. Like, now that, I feel like now we're starting to see what women always really wanted to do. Not what their mom said or their aunt said or what society said women should be. Like, now we're starting to see like, no, like they didn't want to be at home. They felt like they had to stay at home because their mom said that's the only way to get a man or the things of that. And it sucks because now you're like, yo, like, what do you want? Like,
Yeah.
what do you really want? Not
And every person wants something different too.
That's very true. It's
So
very true.
like, to a lot of the times too, people create this generalization, and I always talk to people about this. I'm like, don't create this general concept about man or women just because of a few experiences that you've had. Like, I'm not gonna think that, I'm not gonna sit here and think that like all men lie, all men cheat just because it happened to me a few times. Like, I think it's more about building friendships and getting to know people, and seeing who they are as an individual and what they want in life, and then figuring out like if this friendship works smoothly, if this is a, you know, this friendship and we have common goals and we both know what we want, then yeah, maybe it can work out. But you know, sometimes we try to find love when we don't even know what we want in our future, and then when we figure out what we want in our future, we've created this attachment to a person that doesn't want the same thing. So now we're stuck deciding like, well, am I gonna change my dream and my goal for this person, or is this person gonna, you know, or am I gonna do it anyway and then deal with with their anger and their irritation towards me for doing it, and you know, and then clash. Like, sometimes we want love, but we need to realize that we need to want other things first. Like, we need to want to figure out what we want for ourselves.
I think that's the thing more than anything. I think that's the self-love. I think TD Jakes talked about it. It's like, yo, a man that doesn't understand his purpose will never understand like his partner or what is it that he needs.
Yeah.
And I think like, and to be a superior man, I think reading that book made me realize too, is like, yo, like nothing trumps your purpose. Like once I started to understand my purpose, now I kind of understand like who I need by my side for that to happen. And the irony is that I've been in situations where I probably almost made permanent decisions in my life that, and I was living by sight. I was living by vision. I was living by what I see in front of me, but not what God might have in store for me. And now it's kind of like, I'm happy that I'm not in that space where like now I can like understand and build to a space where I can build a lifestyle I know based upon vision. But a lot of people, especially like in the hood, we grew up so fast.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because like when I was younger, like coaches be like, yo, bro, don't deal with that girl, man. You got time. You're like, man, shut up, man. Like, yo, I'm trying to get my, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to go back of the bleachers. You feel me? I'm trying, you feel me? Like, you trying.
Yeah. And you just do things just because you know that that's what's to be done. Like, you just hear about it. And you're like, I want to know what that's about.
But in reality, like, yo, I feel like you need to grow. Like, I feel like if we spent more time growing and understanding who we were, like, I feel like that's what the childhood is supposed to be. But I feel like in special environments, we don't get that. Yeah. I feel like we grew up so fast that a lot of stuff is stunted. Like our growth, like a lot of our personalities and viewpoint is stunted, but due to that, we're still coping. We're still just trying to find things to like almost. And then now we never factor in how to make money. We never factor in like lifestyle. We never factor in friends. We never factor in social media, society. Like it's a lot of different things that could distract you from who you are and what you want to really do. That it's kind of hard to wiggle out of that and figure it out, and then find somebody to build that life with in a time frame where you can still like, you know what I'm saying, do certain things. And it's tough. Yeah. It's tough. You got to do it with parents and then friends, and then like it's tough.
I give a lot of credit to the people who like had young love and like are still together and still like making it work, because
that's important. Like if
you can grow together, that's a beautiful thing. Like,
that's very important.
And another thing is, we think that relationships are supposed to be perfect, and we don't work on our communication. Like, I think that you need to decide what you want in life. Like, do I really want a relationship that I basically have to communicate? I need to work through problems. I need to try to understand. I need to, you know, all those things. Or do I just want to focus on me? You know, sometimes you're like, I want to just focus on me, but I also want a relationship. So now you're trying to do both and you're not really happy.
Yeah,
you're putting yourself in too many places. So I think life is definitely our greatest teacher. Like, I think I had to go through, you know, when I was 13, I was very young. 13 is a young age. And my older cousins, my cousin had this best friend. And they were trying to hook me up with him since I was like 11. And I was like, yo, I'm mad young. Like, and he was like 4 years older than me. And I used to just be like, this doesn't feel right. And I kept putting it off. And I was just like, why? Like, I'm mad young and nerdy and dorky. Like, what is going on here? What do I even need a relationship for? And I remember I was 13 and he used to write poems for me and give them to my homegirl that was in my classroom. And she was cousins with him, and she was my best friend, and he was best friends with my older cousin. So we ended up dating, and it was just like a 13-year-old. Like, I think I was like even maybe 12 when we first started dating, and then I turned 13, and I was with him from when I was like 12 to when I was like 15, 16. And it was just like, I didn't need that in my life. What I needed at that time were hobbies and things to do. But my grandparents raised me. They didn't have nowhere to put me after school. And my step grandmother used to leave me at his house after school.
That's crazy.
You know, and now here I am competing with this guy who's in high school that has girls that want to like, you know, do all these explicit things with him. And I'm like, I don't even understand why I need to do these things. And so I lost my virginity to him when I was 13. And that was like, when it happened, I cried. I was like, this doesn't feel right. It wasn't even enjoyable. But I think a lot of women lose their virginity at a young age, and it confuses the shit out of them, you know? And I think men too, like I had cousins who like were raped by their babysitters when they were like 12. So I think there's a lot of factors involved, and it's not until you go through it and you experience all these things that you're like, hold on, I need to take a seat and I need to really come back to myself. Because basically that 3-year relationship made me feel like I thought that was going to be the person I was going to marry and have kids and all this stuff with. And that wasn't what happened. So after that, I always was just looking to fill that void, that relationship void. But you don't see it as a void while you're doing it.
Yeah, you don't.
You only see it once it causes so much destruction and so much pain in your life that you're like, wait, I need to see where I'm messing up at. That's when you finally are like, okay, this is what's been going on.
And it's not.
And that's when you change your ways. But if you don't live through it and you don't sit back and try to figure out why you're going through it, you're never going to see it. You're just going to keep going and keep going in cycles and cycles. Like I kept looking for relationships and being in relationship. And I thought that was the answer, and it wasn't. The answer was getting to know myself.
I feel like that's always the answer. Like once you start to understand yourself and get to know yourself, it's like it gets real. I just think like a lot of our generation and generations before, a lot of generations, love started on trauma. Like your first introduction of your body to somebody else started from trauma.
Yeah.
You know, I had a situation like that, like being a young male, like, you know what I'm saying? Like my first sexual experiences wasn't wanted from an older female. And it's kind of like, it throws you off because once you unpack that, like, I'm the funny thing, cause I'm starting to unpack that like now. And you start to unpack it, you're like, wow. Like for a long time, like when I spoke to like my sister about certain things, she always just kind of like, I always wonder why you viewed women a certain way. And it's kind of like, I got a poem that I never really talked about, but it's like that grown woman stole my first kiss. You stole my first, like you know what I'm saying? Like you stole like all the ages and the times for me to actually appreciate women for what I was supposed to appreciate them for. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that trauma kind of like hurt people. And it's like a long cycle. And it's tough because like, it's like, where do we grow from that? You know what I'm saying? How do we understand that? And to the point too, like I feel like a lot of women weren't raised to feel like, to embrace their sexual liberation or understand who they are, understand what is it they want and what makes them free in that space. Yeah. And I feel like we look to others and they look to society and kind of be like, okay, this is what I got to do. Like almost to a certain space is like I feel like now, like how society teaches, like there's girls that's 9 that's twerking because they feel like that's what women do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like it's like they're what are these standards in society that are being viewed to show what being and embracing your physical and owning it and loving yourself, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? So I think
we grow up really fast, like you said.
It's a fact. It's a whole fact.
We grow up before we even understand who we are and what we want. And so
that's a big fact. That's 100% fact. Like I feel like certain stuff don't get talked about. Like the first like it's crazy when you were a kid growing up and like you used to get like a hard on and like, you know what I'm saying, your dick would get hard. Like you used to cover it up. You had to put it between your legs. And then like you get older and then girls be like, yeah, I love gray sweatpants. You're like, hold on, so that's a good thing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, it's a lot of different spaces that you don't get that doesn't get talked about enough, where it's like, you don't understand like how to celebrate your body in a physical being in a form that isn't necessarily deemed sexual for somebody else. Like just to appreciate you for you. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think like we always look to the other side to validate that. You feel me? Like, I feel like as a guy, like you don't feel like you packing or you in a good space until enough girls tell you that. Like, nigga, what if you just good? Like, you good for you. Like, why does it matter? Nah, for real. Like, why does it matter what the outside world look of it is? But it's kind of almost to a certain space that it's like we look to other people to necessarily validate us, like sexually or physically, and it's kind of tough.
Tell us like who we are and shit, and it's like, I guess we the more that we try to figure out who we are and what we want, the easier life gets, because at that point you're like, when certain things happen, you're just like, this isn't for me. You're not like, well, why is this happening to me? Why would this person do this to me? This and that. You're just like, everybody's different. This is not for me, and I need to walk away. And that'll give you more peace. But it's not until you put yourself in that place that you can realize what is for you and what's not for you sometimes.
No, that's a big Fendi.
And 100%. Talking about it, I've always been the type of person to want to talk about things with people, because it's like, some things I just need to hear myself say out loud so that I can get it off my chest and be like, all right, I'm good now. I needed to just let it out. Like holding things in, experiences in is just like, sometimes you just go in circles around it over and over again. Then when you say it out loud, you're like, yeah, that wasn't me. That was the other person had me fucked up. So
nah, that's a big fact.
You know?
That's a nah. It's 100%. Sometimes like that whole like you gotta hear yourself say something. Shit is real. But sometimes when you hear something like, nigga, that's not even me. Like what I sound like right now saying that, like that's not even like hell no, like that's not even me. But I just I think that's a real assessment. That's a real assessment. 100% of a big fact. Like you be like, damn, like nigga, what I feel like. But it's tough because sometimes even being too transparent is for everybody.
Yeah.
There's times that I'll be like, yo, hold on, all right, hold on, yo, this a date.
Yeah.
Or like, hold on, you like me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like what is this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Can we understand what this is so I just know? Especially from a standpoint of like where we're at in the world when it comes to like, especially men to women interactions getting thrown, like, you know what I'm saying, thrown off.
It's funny you mentioned that because like, you know, me, for example, I'm a big supporter of the arts and I have like guy and girl friends and, you know, I'll meet people and I'll think that they just like my poetry and that they just, you know, I'll meet guys and they'll start talking to me with the poetry, but then they end up liking me. And it's like, it's very, you want to be clear when you have an interest in someone. I think the best thing to do is to be clear about it so you can figure out right away, like if it's going to go somewhere or not. Like, don't act like you want to be just friends and then, later on build it on. Cause that's awkward to me. Cause it's like, I thought you were my friend all this time. You know, and it could, when you feel the feeling, like you could probably be friends with someone, not feel anything for them, and then all of a sudden have feelings for them. But too. It's like, you gotta, before you express your feelings to me and all that, I feel like you should know where your intentions are. Like, how much do you like me? Like, are you just curious about like how it feels to be with me? Or like, do you see a future with me? Or like, what is it?
That's,
like,
all right, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's like, yo, don't mess up our friendship for a question mark.
I hear you.
I feel like the friendship is more important because you could accomplish more with that friendship.
Yes and no, because you also got to factor in if that person is having those feelings when they're around you, like, are they lying to themselves? Now it's like I view you. How many Netflix movies show like the guy and the girl and the guy likes the girl, but then she likes somebody else, that he helps that guy get with her, right. And then come to find out like he secretly loved her, and then it's like.
It's complicated,
you know what I'm saying? It becomes complicated. So it's like,
that's why sometimes I try not to even stress about like love and relationships, because I'm like, yo, this shit is so complicated. Like,
I feel like
who has the time for that? Yeah, like when it feels good, when it feels pure, when it feels right, when it feels aligned, like I'll know. It won't be confusing. When it's confusing, I'm like, I'm not worried about it. I'm not gonna figure it out.
But
like,
the thing is that we high-key like confusing. Like, look at the stuff that we watch, we pay attention to. You know what I'm saying? Like, we high-key love the tea, we love the drama. So
I'm at that point where like if something confuses me when it comes to love and relationships, I'm like, I'm off it. I
hear
can't
you,
do
but
it
it's kind of like, but it still be tough because like even as a grown ass man, like you be seeing memes like, yo, bro, if you just want to like have sex, we'll just let her know that, and like you could have just did that and got away from that.
There's girls who do only want to have.
I hear that, but it's still tough though because it's kind of like we still grow up in a space where it's kind of like I grew up in a time where it's like, yo, bro, like. You gonna walk up to him and be like, yo, do you want to have sex with me? Like niggas look at you like, yo, but what are you doing, bro? Like that will that's gonna cancel you out. So it's like it's a weird space of like, yo, hot, like even though, and that's my thing I struggle with. Even though we're in a space of transparency and having certain conversations, to a certain extent, and I don't want it to come off any type of way. To a certain extent, certain women are still accustomed to toxic behavior. They're still accustomed to certain ways.
Into it
yeah, so sometimes it's kind of like not even trick, but sometimes it's tough. Like, you know, I don't want to say that. Like, I want to say, but it's tough sometimes because you're like, all right, she came over, okay, so we chilling. So am I supposed to ask right now? You know what I'm saying? Right. And like sometimes you can ask and throw the whole mood off, and this girl's like, yo, why'd you even ask? You should have just did it. But it's like you can't say that because it's
right.
Like,
you never know how somebody's gonna react until you just do it.
So it's just tough. So it's tough, and it's like it's weird because I'm not gonna lie, like it's weird because growing up you like, all right, like you just shot and you see what happened, like, right. But now it's kind of like.
I think the older we get, too, the more clarity we want. Like, okay, is this friends with benefits, or is this like?
No, that's a fact. You just want to be transparent and understand.
I just be like, oh, hey, I want to be single, but I like you.
Yeah,
or
I just think it's tough. It's tough. It's
yeah,
tough because
it is.
like,
It's a tough place.
Yeah,
I try
it's
not
really,
to focus on it too much.
I try
I'm
not
like,
to focus
it'll
on
be
it
clear.
neither.
Like if this person is like really my soulmate, and for me, I'm gonna know it. We're gonna feel it, and we're gonna express it. I feel like you have to express.
But you looking for a soulmate right now?
Nah, I'm saying like I'm not looking for a soulmate, but I think like if that person ever came around,
you would kind of know.
It would be something, yeah. Like you would kind, like more times than not, you're like, this person isn't really for me, and then you try to find ways to make them be for you. Like you're like, nah, but I'll keep talking to them to see if it works out or whatever. And it's like,
I ain't gonna lie to you, and like it's funny in the book, like the book coming out, I talked about this. It's like, to a certain extent, we almost deal with people and we fuck with people that we know we don't want to necessarily be with and we have no future with, but it gives us almost like an escape plan, and it gives us clarity and it gives us validation because this person wasn't the one. Like I feel like we deal with, like I said, like a lot of soulmates are dying in the friend zone. I feel like there are a lot of people that you're connected with to a certain extent, but you may view like your sexual connection with this person in a different way because of like trauma or how you just naturally view like partner to partner interaction.
Yeah.
And I just naturally feel like I've done it. I've been in a situation like, I know she's not gonna be the one, but because I know that I could be free in this space because I know we're not going further than a point.
Yeah,
so
sometimes
I could just,
you want company, but you're not ready for the long term.
But
thing.
the problem is that I feel like everybody's in that limbo.
Yeah.
Everybody's in that. This is not the one, but it's cool for right now. But I start to realize that if you have people in your space that are not the one and you keep them there for a certain period of time,
it's gonna block.
It blocks your blessings the same way where you keep on doing other things in life that are not for you.
Yeah.
Like you keep on going and doing jobs that are not for you when God got a different plan for you. So sometimes it's like I know you want to get your rocks off. I know you want somebody there to kind of like cuddle you and watch Love and Hip Hop on Netflix with. But sometimes if you really want that person, sometimes you got to like step back and not have that person next to you and like grow in your space and have that energy of a full single person so you can attract that. I feel like so many times people are just like, I think I found my soulmate. Let me leave like who's with me in the bedtime alone. That's not my soulmate. Let me come back to that person. Pull up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And it's like this back
crazy.
And forth, and it's just like, nah, like if you're going to be single, be single.
It's
if you
like,
do your thing, do your thing.
I mean, I think it's also knowing what you want, because some people really just want to like mess around and do this and that. Oh, sorry. So I think it's about knowing what you want too. Like some people don't really want to get married or be in a long-term relationship, so they just mess around and do whatever they want. But like, I think the more you get to know yourself, the more you'll know what you want. Like I personally don't want to just like mess around, so I avoid that. I can avoid it. But then, there might be times where you're like, you know what? The person isn't coming through. Let me just mess around. And it's like, you have to know what you want so you can get what you want. If you don't have like a clear, exact, precise image of what you want out of your life, like your love life, your work, you're just gonna settle for things that are not for you. And then let's say that person who's for you comes around, you're gonna be caught up with plan B over here.
You right, but you right. You 100% right. It's just it's tough because sometimes the space of what you want, you're not always in that space. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you, like, I make a lot of bad decisions with Henny in my system. Like, it's kind of like, dang, like, functional, 100%, all my goals, like, Donnie Cito, I'm 100% like, no, I don't want that. But then, like, you know what I'm saying? 1 shot, 2 shot, 3, you like, hold on. When did she text me? Damn, don't do it. And then my bros be like, yo, bro, don't do it, bro. You know you don't want to do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. But then your body's like, fuck it.
I think also you'll know how much you can tolerate. Like I think like you get to a point where you're like, I don't want to do it anymore. So you stop, and it's not hard for you to stop, but you still in that time where you're experimenting and you still want to like experiment, have fun, and do whatever you're doing. So it's just second nature for you to have some Henny in your system and do it. But maybe either eventually you'll be like, nah, I don't want to do it.
No, you know what I
mean?
No, you get
it's
there.
a matter of time. It's a matter of time.
You get there.
Some people, everybody needs their like experimental time sometimes, to just
you right.
see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. There's no right or wrong to life either. Like every experience, like, and you talk about this, is like every experience is worth something. Every experience either teaches you something about yourself or about others. And you have a book coming out, right?
Yeah, book coming out. It's titled 98 Cents. It's a collection of poems. I don't know, like I personally feel like it's epic as fuck. Like I ain't gonna hold you, like a couple times, like it took a while, like I've been doing it for a minute. It's good. A couple times I stepped back, like let me start writing. I just felt like, yo, it's a process of like my thought processes. I feel like in my life, everybody gave me advice on how to be me. And I always value other people's opinions more than I value my own. And then like eventually I got to a space like, yo, how do I view the world? What's my take on my world? What's the take on love, money, relationships, a lot of different things. So I just created a bunch of poems, put them in a book, and like it's called 98 Cents. Like I feel like y'all take y'all 2 cents, mix with my 98 cents, and we get $1, and hopefully that dollar could complete us. And you know what I'm saying? That's a silver lining to my life. But I think it's a dope book. Visuals are coming out. Book is gonna come out. I'm gonna try to do a nice little book tour. Probably hit up like 8 to 10 cities, you know, stuff like that.
Everybody who follows me needs to follow Cito, because I just feel like Cito is like so amazing, and he has videos on YouTube. He has vlogs. He has like, he's just very creative. You should follow him. Go to his events. Like, get out there, experience something different. Watch more of his poetry. Like, this guy is gonna go very far. It's been a few years, and the grind don't stop, man. And I wish you all the best.
Nah, the grind don't stop. I appreciate you, Lori Love. Like sometimes I ain't gonna lie. Like you make me, like sometimes I be like, damn, I'm fucking up. Like you make me believe in myself sometimes. Like even when I be bugging, cause I be bugging. And I be like, damn, like yo, Lori really believe in me. I'm like, shit. Like I gotta get back on my bullshit.
Yeah, I just think we need more people who keep it real about their journey. You know what I mean? Like, you don't depict yourself to be perfect or to be better than anyone. You literally just talk your shit, like you say, and you just express what you see during our times. Like, I feel like you're a vessel that literally, like, depicts our times. Like 10 to 20 years from now, like, I'll be able to look back at what you do in your videos and be like, yo, that's exactly how it was. Because you have poems about strippers, you have poems about drinking, about gambling. You even have that hood princess poem.
Oh yeah. That's my hood girls, man. That's my girls. That's the girls I grew up with, in middle school with, and high school with. Like
you really depict the times, you know. So I think it would be great for everybody to check out Cito. I'll have his information on the website and on the description. And thank you for joining me. It was great. I feel like we got some good conversation on.
Nah, it was a lot of good content. But like for real though, yo, please.
What's next, Cito? What's next?
I got a show tomorrow in the city. Matter of fact, I'm hosting a show in the Bronx Poetry Slam. Monday I got my first writing workshop. It's for the New York Public Library. Just follow my page, man. Cito Blanko, Cito Blanko. Everything is on there. We're gonna keep it moving. Shout out to Lori Love, appreciate it. Jersey, man, what's up, man? I'm out here, man. Cito Blanquito in the building, man. What's popping?
New York and Jersey combining forces.
You already know.
Goodbye, everyone. Till the next show.
Peace.